Section 1. Minimum 760 words. He knocked at midnight, like something out of a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was the end of one. I used to believe love, real love, was quiet. No grand gestures, no passionate fights, just a steady kind of loyalty. That's what Derek and I had, or what I thought we had. 8 years married. We met in grad school. He was driven, articulate, wore confidence like a second skin. I was the opposite, cautious, observant, maybe too careful for my own good. We balanced each other. That's what I told myself for years. The first few years felt like a rhythm, shared routines, dinner at the same table every night, road trips where silence didn't feel awkward. We bought a house. Hosted family on holidays. Argued, sure, but never cruelly. He remembered birthdays, made me coffee every morning, kissed my forehead like it still mattered. But things started slipping. Subtle at first. Fewer shared meals, more nights of just one more thing at the office, and conversations that dissolved into one-word answers. At first, I blamed stress. He was chasing a promotion, long hours at work, endless strategy meetings. I wanted to be supportive. I became the quiet wife who didn't complain, who waited up and didn't ask questions. I wore silence like a badge of strength. Then came the night I heard his phone buzz after midnight. He was in the shower. I looked. Just a name, no last name, no emoji. Just that one letter. I didn't open the message. I told myself it wasn't right. But the doubt had already cracked something inside me. After that, it became a pattern. Quick glances at his screen when he wasn't looking. Odd messages deleted. He started locking his phone. That wasn't him. He used to leave it anywhere, never cared who saw what. I began to feel like a guest in my own life, tiptoeing through my marriage, afraid that asking the wrong question would shatter everything. One night over dinner, I finally asked, lightly, "You've been texting someone a lot lately. Everything okay at work?" He didn't flinch. Didn't even look up. Just some back and forth on a new project. Nothing serious. I nodded. Sipped my wine. Chewed too long on cold pasta. And in that moment, I knew. Not the details. Not the name. But I knew. He wasn't cruel. He still made the bed every morning. He still kissed my cheek goodbye. But intimacy isn't just physical. It's attention, presence. He wasn't with me anymore. His body was, but the rest of him was somewhere else. I started talking less. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't want to hear my own voice begging for scraps of attention. I stopped checking his phone. What was the point? The truth wasn't in the messages. It was in the way he didn't reach for my hand anymore. In how he rolled to his side at night and stopped saying good morning. There's a kind of loneliness that hits hardest when you're lying next to the person who's supposed to know you best. It's not the absence of love, it's the ghost of it. The shadow of what used to be. I remember thinking, maybe this is just what long relationships become. Maybe the spark fades and this is the quiet we have to accept. But deep down, I didn't believe that. I couldn't. Then came the moment that stays with me, like a splinter you can't pull out. I found a receipt in his jacket. A hotel. Not far from his office. Dated last Thursday, the night he said he was working late. I stood there, staring at it, unable to breathe. The kind of panic that doesn't explode but sinks, slow and heavy, through your chest. I didn't ask him about it. Not yet. I needed space to think. To breathe. I started watching him more carefully after that. How he avoided eye contact. How he checked his reflection before heading out. How he smiled at his phone, and still, I said nothing. I went to work, made dinner, answered emails, folded laundry. I performed my role as if nothing had changed. But everything had. The worst part wasn't the suspicion. It was the doubt in myself. Was I imagining things? Being paranoid? Or was I just afraid of admitting that I'd lost him? And then, that night. Midnight. A knock at the door. Soft. Hesitant. I remember looking at the clock. I hadn't been sleeping. I opened it, expecting a mistake, a neighbor, anything but what I saw. She stood there. Nervous. Coat pulled tight. Her voice barely above a whisper, "Are you Maya?" I said yes, I'm sorry, she said. I think we need to talk. And just like that, everything I had suspected walked through my door, but it didn't come from him. It came from her. Section 2, minimum 760 words. She said her name was Elena. She looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept in days. I didn't invite her in, but she stepped through anyway, as if she already knew that once the words left her mouth, everything would change. She didn't waste time. I didn't know he was married at first, she said. He never mentioned you. Not once. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. She wasn't there to cause a scene. She was there to confess. I didn't interrupt. I wanted every single detail. I needed to hear the truth from someone, even if it came from the last person I ever wanted to meet. They met at work. It started with late nights and easy conversations. He told her he felt stuck, unseen, unappreciated at home. The usual script, I suppose. She admitted she believed him. Thought maybe they had something real. Thought maybe he was honest. Then she saw a photo on his desk, me. He brushed it off. Said we were separated. Said it was complicated. But her instincts told her otherwise. She followed those instincts, and they led her to my address. You deserve to know, she said. I walked away from him the second I found out. But you deserve the truth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why she came here, or what she expected from me. I just listened, nodding occasionally, like someone watching their own life being narrated by a stranger. When she finished, there was a long silence. She apologized again. And then she left. 10 minutes later, Derek walked through the front door. Tie loose, eyes tired, as if he'd had a long day of pretending. He saw my face, the open door, the silence, and he knew. His expression didn't shift to guilt. It shifted to defense. What did she say to you? Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. I didn't answer. I waited. I wanted to see what he'd do with the silence. He took a breath, then sat down like this was just another conversation between us. It wasn't serious, he said. It wasn't supposed to be anything. I didn't plan for it to go that far. He looked at me then, finally. I've been feeling lost. Like we were just coexisting. You don't talk to me anymore. You're always distracted. I didn't know how to bring it up. The weight of his words didn't hit me the way he thought they would. He wasn't just justifying what he did. He was making it my fault. You cheated because I was quiet. I asked. He didn't respond. You lied for months. You carried this thing behind my back, and now you want to tell me it's because I didn't talk enough at dinner? Still nothing. I realized then that he hadn't come clean because he respected me. He hadn't confessed because he regretted it. He got caught. That was all. He asked if I could forgive him. If we could work through it. Go to therapy. Try to rebuild. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just stared at him, seeing someone I didn't recognize. A stranger who wore my husband's face. The truth wasn't just that he cheated. It was that he had become someone who could. And worse, he thought it made sense. That night, I lay awake next to him. He slept like nothing had changed. I stared at the ceiling, trying to decide whether to scream or disappear. I thought about the life we had built. The memories. The traditions. Our wedding vows. All of it suddenly felt like borrowed time, held together by my refusal to see what was in front of me. I didn't leave the next day. That surprised me. I always thought I'd be the kind of woman who walks out without looking back. But when the moment came, I hesitated. Not because I wanted to stay, but because I needed to understand what had happened to me, how I had gone from a woman who trusted fully to someone who second-guessed every word, every silence, every minute he wasn't home. There is a specific kind of grief that comes when someone chooses to betray you quietly, lovingly, with a smile still on their face. That grief doesn't scream. It whispers. And it takes its time. He kept asking if I was okay in the days that followed. Kept making my coffee like that would erase the months he spent building a life outside of ours. I said I needed time. He said he'd wait, but he didn't know. I wasn't buying time to fix us. I was buying time to find myself again. Section 3, minimum 760 words. I packed my bags a week later. No dramatic exit, no final confrontation. I left him a note that simply said, I don't need more lies, and I'm not waiting for apologies to feel whole. I moved into my sister's spare room, a small space filled with mismatched furniture and silence that didn't hurt. For the first time in a long time, the silence belonged to me. Derek kept texting. Long messages filled with regret, promises, pleas. He offered counseling. Said he was lost, that he made a mistake, that he still loved me. But I wasn't interested in fixing a man who broke me with intention. Regret is cheap when it comes after exposure. If Elena hadn't knocked that night, he would have kept going. That's the part he never said aloud, but I knew it. I blocked his number after a week. Not out of anger, but necessity. Healing couldn't begin with him still in my ear, painting pictures of a future he never valued until it crumbled. I needed distance. Not just from him, but from the version of myself that had tolerated so little for so long. People kept asking what happened. Family. Friends. Everyone wanted a story they could categorize. Was he cruel? Did he fall in love with her? Did I see it coming? I told them only what they needed to hear. It ended. That was enough. The rest was mine to process. Mornings were the hardest. I was so used to the rhythm of 2 mugs on the counter, quiet steps around each other, a kiss on the way out. Even if it had turned hollow, it was familiar. Now, every step echoed differently. But every day, the air felt a little lighter. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since before our wedding. At first, it was just lists, things I missed about my old self, things I refused to tolerate again, moments I ignored when my gut tried to speak. Eventually, the words poured out, like poison being pulled from a wound. One afternoon, I ran into Liam. We hadn't seen each other in years. We dated briefly in our 20s, nothing heavy, just timing that never worked. He looked surprised to see me, then genuinely happy. We talked like no time had passed. No awkwardness, just the ease of someone who remembers the version of you before life broke pieces off. He didn't ask why I looked tired. Didn't mention Derek. We just talked about music, books, travel. When he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, I didn't hesitate. Not because I was looking for something new, but because for once, I wasn't afraid of something familiar. That coffee didn't turn into anything more than a few laughs and a soft reminder that good men still exist. That I was still someone worth knowing, even outside of being someone's wife. I began rebuilding routines. Not out of obligation, but choice. I cooked for myself. Slept with the window open. Took walks in the evening with no destination. I relearned the art of being alone without being lonely. It struck me how much of my identity had quietly disappeared inside our marriage. Not because Derek took it from me, but because I gave it up, piece by piece, thinking that's what love required. Compromise turned into disappearance. I stopped painting. I stopped calling my friends back. I stopped prioritizing my joy in the name of keeping peace. And peace never came. I no longer wanted revenge or closure. I didn't want him to suffer or understand. What I wanted was to no longer carry him in my thoughts. That, I realized, was the real freedom. When your mind stops looping around the what ifs, the apologies you'll never get, the things you should have done sooner. I walked by our old street once. The lights were on in the living room. Someone else might have thought it looked warm, inviting. I didn't feel anything. Not grief. Not bitterness. Just distance. The kind that doesn't ache anymore. Healing isn't a climax. It's quiet. It happens slowly, in skipped songs you can listen to again, in mirror reflections you no longer avoid, in the absence of pain when his name comes up in conversation. I'm not grateful it happened. That would be dishonest. But I'm grateful I found out. Grateful I didn't let convenience or fear keep me tied to someone who stopped choosing me long before I noticed. He knocked at midnight. But he wasn't the one who changed everything. I did. Section 4, minimum 760 words, months passed. The chaos faded, and something quieter took its place, clarity. I no longer woke up wondering what he was doing, or who he was texting. My thoughts belonged to me again. That was the real shift. It wasn't about moving on quickly, or pretending I was fine. It was about owning my space without guilt, without waiting for someone else's decisions to shape my life. One afternoon, I received an email from Derek. Just a few lines. No long explanations, no new apologies. He said he understood why I left. That he wouldn't contact me again. He wished me peace. For the first time, it didn't sting. It didn't make me question my choice. It felt like a door clicking shut. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I threw away our wedding album a week later. Not out of bitterness, just practicality. Keeping it felt like holding on to a version of life that no longer fit. Those photos didn't show the truth. They captured two people smiling, unaware of how much would be lost in the years to come. I didn't need those reminders anymore. Memory has a way of preserving what matters. The rest can go. I also deleted the last of our shared playlists. Music had always meant something between us, now it didn't. I didn't want to flinch when a familiar song played. I wanted to take back those moments, give them new meaning. Not erase them. Just detach them from him. My sister asked one evening if I thought I'd ever fall in love again. I didn't have a rehearsed answer. I just said, I don't know. But I won't shrink for it. That was the part that mattered. Not whether love would happen again, but whether I'd lose myself in it if it did. I've learned that infidelity isn't just about bodies or betrayal. It's about how someone rewrites reality behind your back. How they force you to question what was ever real. But I've also learned that healing means refusing to carry their shame. There are moments now where I feel joy in the smallest ways, finding a new book I can't put down, cooking something just for myself, laughing with people who see me beyond titles like wife or ex. Those moments aren't loud. They're soft, steady. But they're real. I also started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I needed to understand my patterns. Why I ignored my instincts. Why I stayed silent when things didn't feel right. Why I gave so much without asking for anything in return. Healing didn't come from blaming Derek. It came from holding a mirror to myself and doing the work he never did. The hardest part? Forgiving myself. Not for being cheated on, but for staying in a place where I was slowly disappearing. For not asking more questions. For making excuses when the truth was in front of me. But I remind myself, survival looks different for everyone. Sometimes, silence is survival. Sometimes, denial is how we buy ourselves time until we are ready to face what hurts. I'm not ashamed of the woman who loved him. She was loyal. Hopeful. Believed in the power of commitment. She tried. She showed up. She deserved better, but she still gave her best. That matters. Now, when people talk about love, I listen differently. I don't look for perfection. I look for presence. Accountability. The kind of love that doesn't flinch when things get hard. That doesn't disappear in secret or ask for silence in exchange for comfort. I no longer measure love by what it gives me. I measure it by what I no longer have to sacrifice to keep it. Derek was a chapter. One that taught me about limits, boundaries, and the difference between love and attachment. He showed me the cracks in my own foundation, the places I still needed to repair. And for that, oddly, I'm thankful, not for the pain, but for the wake-up call. There's a peace in knowing you chose yourself. That you didn't wait for someone to change. That you walked away not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself more. The night he knocked at my door, he didn't come for forgiveness. He came out of guilt. But that moment forced the truth into the open. And that truth set me free, even if it shattered everything first. I'm not defined by what he did. I'm defined by what I chose after, and I chose to begin again. On my terms. Without permission. Without regret.